Apparently now we're live. All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. And today we were supposed to be talking about safeguarding your wealth using trust to protect your assets. Now, I know a lot of y'all watch me up in here with the setup if y'all jumped in from TikTok side, because I was trying to make it do what it do. I got two webcams. I got a stream from two different streaming platforms. I'm trying to bring everybody together so that we can make some money, because it's all about making money for you. So I thought that it was just very interesting that we were I had one camera not on, the other camera on, one mic on, one mic not on. I was like, wait, what? Trying to get the setup right. So now that we got the setup right, I appreciate. Look, what is that? Dina jumped in from the shorts videos. We got relationship topics coming up. What's today? Tuesday. We got relationship topics coming up on Wednesday. So don't worry about it. We got you. We got you. I know if that's what you came for, we got you. But big holla. We're gonna go ahead and talk about these here trusts. So anybody who was thinking about, man, that you hear these rich folks talking about, or at least these seemingly successful people talking about how, oh yeah, you can do this, do that, go grab your trust, put everything in a trust, beneficiary, put it in a trust. And they don't really tell you like anything about a trust. They just tell you, oh, go get one. And I mean, there are some ins and outs about creating a trust. And I don't know, I can try to get into exactly how you're creating a trust, but a trust is like a contract. And it's going to be a binding contract that you have to submit. So it is not free, no matter what you think. It is not free. A trust is going to cost you some money somewhere. You might be able to create the ins and outs of the trust yourself, a little outline. But if you want to get that trust ironclad where nobody can come back and mess with your money, you might have to spend at least 1 to 2 hours with a real estate lawyer, not a real estate lawyer, an estate lawyer. And that way they can help you out with finalizing and making sure that your verbiage is correct. And you might want to talk to a tax lawyer too if you want to make sure that you're or a CPA, you want to make sure that your trust is in line with any tax laws that you may be affected by grabbing these trusts. Also with the setup of the trust, because you got to file them somewhere. You've got to have a copy of it somewhere. You might have to pay a third party company in order to hold them and execute them for you if you're doing one of those irrevocable trusts where you're going to pay a trustee to manage your trust so that you don't have to micromanage everything. But if you were the kind of person that was going to micromanage everything, you just have to have all of your P's and Q's and I's and T's and everything dotted and ripped and ready to go, so that when you get ready to start utilizing this trust, you can start doing it. Now they got some simple trusts and they got some complex trusts. And before I start getting into the complex trust, I just want to start off all the way at the top of this really long list of trust information and just get in there and start talking to you guys about these irrevocable trusts. And please chime in if you guys got some knowledge that y'all want to share with the rest of the world about any information that you have. Meanwhile, I just thought about how if you want to jump up and say what you got to say, you can jump up and say what you got to say, because I just activated the invites. So I can have a few of y'all that's got some knowledge and information about trust and or real estate or investments to have the ability to request an invite and jump in. I see here, I got a couple of you guys jumping in on Twitch and YouTube and Twitter. So for you guys, I've got a link over here on the side for the StreamYard platform. You guys can click that link, and if you approve the mic and approve the camera, you will be brought up onto the show. And once I confirm that you're over the age of 18, you will be in there like swimwear, because I've got to make sure that you are all grown. So with that being said, real time, let's go ahead and get this party started. Hold on, I think I'm behind the tad. Yeah. Irrevocable trust. I did some research for y'all. Look. I ain't just gonna come up in here and be like, oh yeah, I know everything about everything. Nah, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. I talk about too many topics in a year, 3 to 5 topics a day. 7. There's absolutely no way that I would have in the forefront of my mind 200 years of information on 3 million topics and be able to just sit there and talk about it off the top of my head like it ain't nothing every day of the week. So no, I did some research for you just to make sure that I ratified my information with confirmation. So the irrevocable trust is one of the first ones that people talk about. They talk about the irrevocable and the revocable. The revocable trust is a temporary thing that you can change whenever you feel like it. The controller of the trust or trustee can make changes whenever they want to. An irrevocable trust is the type of trust that does not change without the knowledge and consent of the beneficiary. So you might still have a little bit of control, but one of the things that we need to talk about with irrevocable trust is that while you're utilizing, a lot of people utilize irrevocable trust to avoid estate tax. Estate tax is not property tax. Estate tax is the entire estate. So any land that an individual owns or a family owns or the ancestors owned, the businesses, any cash, stocks, bonds, anything, all of it is estate. So if one of your family members die, their house, their car, even their dog, that's part of their estate. And there's typically a monetary value to everything in the estate. And typically some states tax you on that estate when you are inheriting this estate from somebody else. It's called an inheritance tax or an estate tax. Now, there are some states in the country that do not have inheritance tax or various levels of estate tax. And you need to find out which states they are in. I was actually going to talk about this towards the end of the show, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now since I just mentioned it. Now, one of the key points that I want you to think about when you are establishing your trust, there are a few key factors with that, because when you create the trust, the laws of the state where the trust was created is primarily determining how the trust is administered, even if the beneficiary lives in a different state. However, you have some extra complications that are involved with that, because while the trust is governed by the created state, there are still situations where there are other state laws that could apply depending on the location of certain assets, like houses and real estate in different cities or states, than the original trust and the location of the trustee's residence, which actually makes a difference, because a lot of the times the trustee could be living on the estate, and there's also where the property is where the trustee lives, and sometimes the trustee and the asset could be in the same state, and sometimes the trustee and the asset can be in two different states, and the applicable laws related to the trust is not necessarily the same as the applicable obligations of the trustee. So the only firsthand benefit that I would recommend to individuals is to first try to slap your hold on, because it may contain original or reproduced content. How are they gonna talk about unoriginal? I just created that shit. Hold on, y'all. My live does not contain content mentioned in the notice. Submit. I don't know why they do these things. They did this to me the last time when I was promoting something related to the dark money, and they were giving me shit about that, and I'm like, wait, what? But the one of the things that we thought was very important is that you have to remember that the importance of where you create your trust is going to be specifically probably the same state that you're going to have your trustee in. So if you were doing a third party trustee, it would be important for you to say, okay, well, if I'm going to get it in, say, California, if California is one of those states that doesn't charge certain types of applicable taxes to the beneficiaries of the trust, then the trustee in California can do what he's got to do, and then you get your cut, and then everything is covered. But if you're in a situation where that's not the case, and you're in a position where the trustee, like say you're the trustee, you can't go and try to cheat the system and go and do a trust in a different state than you're living in, and the state that, oh, okay. Hold on, y'all. 9:27 to 10:29. Remember, join before going live. Increase the engagement thing. Yeah, I see it. Hold on, y'all. I'm looking at. They giving me some shit. Oh well, fuck it. I don't give a fuck. Hey, they give me shit all the time because I don't understand why TikTok does that. Because when you start talking about helping people with getting knowledge, for some reason they try to say, oh well, you know, oh you can't put that up there. Fuck you mean I can't put that up there? I sat here and drafted a whole 20-page document, and now they're gonna tell me that I can't put it up there. Like I don't fucking it ain't gonna change nothing, because when I throw the short up there, it's gonna be the same thing. I'm gonna create a short about the shit, and it's gonna go up there. And YouTube ain't got no problem with it. YouTube's not gonna come and tell me, oh, you can't talk about what the laws say about creating a trust. They're not gonna tell you that. So I don't get it. But it's whatever. Let's see. Carrying on, because I already started my show. I'm not going to change my show because they don't like the fact that I'm telling you guys how to make your money make money for you. But if they limit the ability for you guys to see it, that's okay, because I'm going to repost it up in multiple different micro forums. So it's going to go back up somewhere. If you guys can't find it here, you can always click the link and take you over to YouTube, and you can get the whole show off of YouTube. You subscribe over there, and all the information that you're not getting here, you can get over there. That's how it works. Ah, see that? How they gonna restart this show? Because they feel salty. Okay. If you click the link right there on the bottom right corner, it will put you guys on the YouTube platform where you can subscribe there. You can get more information about the information that I'm providing for you today. So if they don't want you to have it right now, then TikTok can try to stop you from having it. But if you really want to know some detailed information about what trusts are and trust, then it is important for you to try to get it from me or get it from me at the other podcast. You can also do some research the same way I did, so that you can piece a lot of this information together, and you would be able to have this information for yourself. So either way it goes, whether or not they I don't really care. I'm not even monetized on TikTok, so it doesn't hurt my feelings. It doesn't hurt my feelings. The reason why we're picture in picture is because we're primarily from YouTube, and we're just airing on TikTok for the sake of doing things for TikTok. So, I mean, if TikTok's going to be difficult, I mean, it's not going to kill me, because I'm not financially invested in TikTok. It's not going to kill me to share my content on Twitter. So I don't really give a fuck. Back to what I was talking about. Since we understand that since you understand that you can't just try to cheat the system like we do with vehicle registration, because, you know, like some people who want a car, they don't want to have to pay insurance on it, or if they're going to get insurance on it, they don't want to have to pay property taxes on it and all this shit. Like, you can register your vehicle in states that don't have as strict registration laws for your vehicle as other states that make you keep track of the registration and pay taxes on it and all this other stuff. A trust does the same thing. A trust will do the same thing. If you put a trust in a certain state, if the trust is set up accurately, then yes, all of the information on the trust will be placed in the correct categories for you, where you actually end up benefiting. And if you got somebody, like you got an attorney helping you create the trust, you can be better at it. You want to get an attorney that's in the state of the trust, That way, you're not negatively impacting the success of your trust. And typically, if that lawyer is aiding you with creating a trust, guess who's got a copy of your trust? The lawyer that helped you create it. So if in the event that you lose a copy of your trust, you can always go back and recover it from that same lawyer. And typically, they don't even charge you an extra fee to recover the trust, because trust usually isn't that big of a document. It's anywhere between 1 and 10 pages, depending on how much stuff you have and how much instructions you have with your trust. So when we're talking about these trusts, you want to just remember that it is important for you to put these, be able to benefit from the trust existing, whether you are trying to save money on taxes, you're trying not to lose your assets in comparison to your debt. If you are trying to create a generational wealth for your family, and you want your kids to be able to, receive your assets without everybody having to fight one another. Because if you have a trust and it says, well, if trustee number one goes, then trustee number two takes over, or appointing a trust where you have a primary trustee and a secondary trustee, where if the primary trustee, something happens to that person, the secondary trustee becomes a primary trustee. That's how you can say, well, if I die, then my oldest son takes over my trust because he's the secondary trustee. So when the primary trustee is no longer available, the secondary trustee takes over. If you was to have a trustee like I'm going to be the trustee, and if I pass, Morgan and Morgan might be the trustee kind of situation. If that was a thing that you wanted to set up, where you're going to micromanage your own trust, but then when you pass and you're leaving the trust for your kids, you can have a third party operate the trust for you so that the trust is still functioning. But it's better to set stuff like that up with your irrevocable trust, because a third party can't compromise your irrevocable trust. The original creator of the trust is no longer accessible, and the only changes that can be made to the trust are changes that are brought to the attention of the beneficiary. This is going to be the situations where, no matter how rich you are, you have to ask somebody else for access to your assets, because while you have all these assets, you don't own all these assets. Your trust owns these assets. So mom gives you your allowance. So your trustee owns your assets until your trustee gives you your assets. Now, a trustee does not take assets away from you, where if you're supposed to receive a certain quantity of capital per month, outside of revocable trust that can be compromised on a regular basis, a irrevocable trust, if you're supposed to be receiving a certain quantity of capital, once that trust is made, it don't matter if I hate your guts after that. I can't just, oh, you're out of the trust. It doesn't work that way. There's a lot of steps involved to modify an irrevocable trust. So once your assets are placed in that irrevocable trust, one of the things that you have to remember is that while people move them into that trust so that it takes that asset out of their personal name, it goes into that particular location so that you do not have to pay taxes on it yourself. You yourself don't have to pay taxes on it. But depending on the type of trust that you create, the trust may have to pay taxes, whether it is paying a small sum of taxes based on the type of trust you create, or it's going to be paying a larger sum of taxes based on the type of trust that you create. So the assets in the trust being no longer yours, which is why they say don't put vehicles in trust. They're no longer yours. So the estate is no longer, the assets are no longer your responsibility. So say you get into a car crash and your insurance doesn't cover the crash. The person can sue you personally for all of the assets that you own up to whatever amount that they're claiming. But if everything that you own is in a trust besides the vehicle that you were driving at the time of the crash, they can't really get anything other than the value of the totaled out vehicle. So that's one of the ways that people protect themselves. So they can only take whatever's in the bank under your name, whatever stocks and bonds and mutualities that's in stock market under your name, any vehicles that are under your name, and any property that's under your name. But if all the property belongs to a trust or a business or something like that, then it's not something that can be actionable. They can't sue you to get access to your trust, and they can't necessarily sue your trust to get back at you, because the trust is a separate entity from you, which is why you don't pay taxes on any of your assets that you put into your trust. So This is one of the reasons why a lot of the wealthy people put their stuff into the trust. So moving forward, the issue that you have is, while yeah, you reap the reward of not having to pay taxes on your trust, one of the issues that you fall back on is the asset that is in the trust is no longer considered legally yours. So you're not subject to any estate laws, but you don't have any control over the property personally, because since you are no longer the owner of the trust, because especially in an irrevocable trust, the trust is the new owner of the property, of the asset. The only person that can dictate terms about what happens with that trust would be the trustee. And if you're not the trustee, you got to answer to the trustee. Now, the trustee is legally obligated to provide you access to resources based on the contract that you set up for the trust, which is why you have to be pretty detailed on that trust. But outside of loosely written trust or very light assets in a trust that doesn't require a lot of instruction or directive, you don't own the trust. Now, you can utilize assets like real estate in a trust, but when you utilize assets like real estate in a trust, the trust is now getting the mortgage on a property and investing the property and this, that, and the third. You personally don't own the property to be able to take the property out of a trust and go and do something else with it. The trust has to do it. Now, you as a trustee representing the trust can potentially take it in those revocable trusts, or if you are the beneficiary of the trust and you authorize the trustee to do this, that they could take your assets and invest them in the stocks and real estate and everything like that, and receive benefits from it. And then when the trust receives benefits and pays whatever applicable taxes the trust is required to pay, then the trust gets back assets. That's different from you personally having to pay like sales tax or something like that. When you actually buy or sell something, you're not personally making any money. Now, I know that a lot of people wonder to themselves, well, you know, what happens if I'm on disability? How does this apply to me on disability? I'm gonna get to that. But I wanted to talk to you about the fact that while there are irrevocable trusts here, you have to know when an irrevocable trust benefits you versus when an irrevocable trust does not benefit you. So one of the things that you're going to need to arrange this irrevocable trust is a grantor that transfers assets into the trust. A grantor is the person who originally owned the assets transferring assets into the trust. And the terms of the trust cannot be modified or terminated without the beneficiary's permission, which means that nobody, once this thing is set up, because it's irrevocable, nobody can modify it without the person who's supposed to be receiving benefit from the trust being notified about it. So if you put a house in a trust, if you put money into a trust, if you put stocks into a trust, if your kids are the beneficiary, your kids have to receive notice that they're no longer receiving the benefits from this irrevocable trust before those benefits are terminated. And they sometimes have to consent to that particular change, especially if this is a linear situation. Now, you've got some tax benefits from this, and the irrevocable trust offers significant tax advantages that are a lot higher than having a C corporation or an S corporation. But the fact is that you have to remember that there are some flexibilities involved with how you do it and when you can do it. So one of the advantages is that because these assets and are removed from the grantor's taxable estate, the potential to reduce the estate taxes of the grantor is higher. So what that means is that for if I own a house and I put the house into the trust, I no longer have to personally pay property taxes. Doesn't mean that the property taxes doesn't have to be paid. It just means that I don't have to pay the property taxes. So if property taxes needs to be paid, it will be paid from the trust. Keep that in mind. Now, the tax rate on the trust might be lower than the tax rate on the grantor, on the original homeowner, on the civilian. even though each one of us are walking businesses because our name is a business. That's why those people who are trying to scream sovereign nation says that they are not doing any commerce in the United States when they're traveling instead of being considered driving, because the driving is a privilege of commerce business, while traveling is not. Traveling is just traveling. It's a catch-22 because according to the laws of the United States, any individual traveling in a motor vehicle is considered driving, and driving is a privilege, and that privilege is only afforded to people who have proper identification, approved privilege, and a properly registered vehicle. So you gotta completely set yourself up, and that requires a whole nother set of documents involved. I'm not going to talk about that today. But when you're looking at the difference in tax rates, additionally, you have gifts to the trust. Remember, I talked to you guys about the government bonds, the treasury bond, and the index bonds that you can do with the U.S. government, where those bonds allow you to put as much as $10,000 per account, and you could set up an account for yourself, one per person, but you could do one for yourself, one for your dog, one for your kids, one for your wife, one for your business, one for your trust. That's what that is. If you want to set something up to your trust, the trust can qualify for annual gift tax exemptions up to $17,000 per beneficiary. And that was a statistic that was granted up in 2023. So when you start putting cash gifts or gifts of some sort, like stocks and everything like that, into your family member's trust, the beneficiary's trust, up to $17,000, the U.S. says, hey, well, you could put up to $10,000 at a time. So that means that 100% of the money that you just put into this trust as a gift is non-taxable. Now, there are some laws that apply that differentiate between which stocks and bonds that can and cannot be taxed under the gift tax in a trust. And you have to make sure that you talk to your local CPA, as well as a trust attorney, as well as a tax attorney, all these people that can help you out with understanding the ins and outs of this. But if you make a big book about it, which I probably should do, but if you made a big book about it, then you would have all the ins and outs of what a trust is supposed to look like and how a trust is supposed to function. So then you have asset protection as one of the major reasons why we go and get these trusts. When people run out there and go and grab a trust, it's that asset protection. And how you doing, Red Void? I told you that I was going to tell you about ways to save yourself some money. So while we here, we're talking about trust asset protection. So when you're using your irrevocable trust, you're going to receive the most protection that you can for your assets in comparison to having everything in your own name. I know that when we was growing up, we used to put everything in our mama name. We used to put stuff in our auntie name. Those of us that used to run the streets used to put stuff in our grandmama name. And we used to run it like that because if something happened to me, everything already in her name. I'll put it in her name and I'll pay for it, and then I can benefit from using it. So it ain't my car, it's her car. It ain't my house, it's her house. It ain't my bank account, it's her bank account. When if something happens to me, she ain't got to worry. That's how those of us that did not have the rich mindset would do things to make sure that our family is taken care of. But the downside to that is that if any event that debt is occurred, it gets collected under that person's name because you're using that person's name to set up these accounts. Also, because that person is live in control of that account because you set up that account in that person's name, just like you bought a car for yourself and registered to your sister or something like that, it is in that person's name. So that person decides to be a dick, they can stop you from utilizing that asset. That's the downside to that. With irrevocable trust, it's a little less lack of control for you, but you still got to answer to somebody else a little bit because you no longer own the stuff. Now, this is going to benefit you particularly more effectively than individual high risk in your profession. Now, the types of irrevocable trust that they have and I mean, there are a lot of, but the one style is the living trust, and that's going to be created and funded during the grantor's lifetime. And usually a living trust is an irrevocable trust that you create where throughout your lifetime you're going to be building this thing up for the next generation. And then when you pass, it is going to be set in stone. These kids are going to get what they're going to get, and that's it. You've got the testamentary trust, and these are created after the grantor's death according to their will. So if you do a living will, you got that recording there, you've got the attorney there. They're going to replay the last testimony or whatever of the individual. That last will and testament is what they call it. Then in that situation, what he or she said is supposed to happen with their estate, that gets put into a trust that gets enforced by a trustee that was appointed when the living trust was created or the living will was created. But you have to remember that when you start dealing with large quantities of assets, you start dealing with, after a certain amount of money, you start dealing with inheritance tax. You start dealing with large quantities of capital gain that leads you to compromising benefits in certain scenarios. So you've got to remember that if you throw some of your stuff or most of your stuff or all of your stuff into a trust, then you're able to keep track of your assets, but disassociate yourself from your assets so that you yourself can't get sued for the actions of your property. Like if somebody falls on the house and break their ankle, then they can sue the property, but the property is owned by the trust. The trust has to settle that out of court. That doesn't impact you personally. If you get into a fight with somebody, they can sue you, but you don't own the house, so they can't sue you before your house because you don't own it. The trust owns it. That's the difference there. But another trust, another irrevocable trust that they have is a non-grantor trust. Now, that trust itself is one of those things where the taxes is paid on the income, where there is no grantor. The trust itself is going to pay. So like if you build up a trust that's going to make its own money, it's going to earn its own income. That non-grantor trust is going to pay taxes on the money that it receives. I can say from what I've understand from the other people that I've talked to about this is that there are less non-grantor trusts than there are living trust, testimonial trust, grantor trust, and the revocable trust. And one of the reasons why is that most of the trusts usually have a grantor, because if the grantor is putting assets into the trust, then the trust is not going to be turning over a large quantity of earned income, because earned income, regardless of what the entity is supposed to be liable for paying certain quantities of taxes on that earned income. A non-grantor trust is a trust that is making money without being given money from an outside source. That's the difference. If I give you money, you don't have to pay taxes on it. If you earn money, you have to pay taxes on it. So pay attention to that part. Now, there's some considerations that you have to take adherence to when you're dealing with these. And while you do understand that the setup of these are so complex, because I'm actually going over the cliff notes of the expectancy of the what trusts are and how those trusts can be used. They also have so much more going on that are actual drawbacks, because one of the reasons why every person in the United States doesn't have a trust is because they're so complex to set up. And along the lines of the setup, there are administrative fees. There's a lot of setup. So this shit ain't cheap, because if it was cheap, everybody would have 10. Like, you've got people with more pairs of Jordans than they have bank accounts, much less trust. You got Gen Zs right now that are tap dancing around Cash App instead of a real bank account. So they don't have one real bank account, but they've got online Cash App where they can wire you money. That's just the way life goes. So and Cash App replaced PayPal because PayPal used to be a thing to do, but PayPal was more secure than Cash App. Cash App is like untraceable, which means if you give away money, it's just a loss. But back to the trust. The irrevocable trusts are usually used for those high net worthy individuals, people that's got a large quantity of stuff and money, and it's going to help protect their assets and help them devise strategies as to ways that they can utilize more of their assets and resources to make money for them and not pay as much taxes on those assets. Now, providing for beneficiaries with special needs is one of the good ways of having a trust. So if you have a sick family member or a disabled family member or a family member that just for some reason does not hold down a stable job, you want to look out for them. That is a good way to get a trust. But the trust is going to require you to have some of their personal information. So you're not going to be able to just surprise somebody and just throw them into a trust. You have to get access to their personal information. So if you're going to be wire transferring them money to their bank account, you got to get access to their bank account information. If you're going to be sending them checks, you got to get their address. Whatever you got to do. But as you set up this trust, you got to notify certain people. Hey, I'm going to create this trust for you. Now, when it comes down to your kids or people that you have legal authority over, you might already have all of their legal information, so you don't necessarily have to ask them for permission to use their legal information to add it to your account to send them money, but they are going to have to be made aware that this situation exists in order for something bad to not happen down the line. Now, in addition to providing for special needs individuals, you also have trusts that are utilized for charitable giveaways. So you can create a trust that specifically donates a certain quantity of money to a certain charity over a certain period of time. That way you're still getting your tax write-offs for donating the money to charity, but you are also not giving away all of your money at one time, and you're able to set it up for annual installments where the trust is forever getting the charity is forever getting money from you, and the trust is always getting more money than it's giving away. That way the trust doesn't wear itself out. A lot like the relationship topics that we have, you're supposed to put more into your relationship than what you take out of your relationship. The same way with this trust, you're supposed to put more into your trust than what you take out of your trust. And if you have a trust where somebody is taking more out of the trust than what's going in the trust will wear itself out. And the faster you're taking money out of the trust, then money is being generated for the trust. The lower the interest rates, and the lower the interest rates, the lower the profit margin, the lower the profit margin, the lower the longevity of the success of the trust. So you want to make sure that if you're spending 5% of the revenue generated or dividends calculated from the trust principal, you want to make sure that the trust principal is calculating 10, 15, 20% of profit off of that same value. That way, if you're only spending 5% of the 15%, then you're still profiting 10%. Or you're still making money while you're spending money, but you don't want to bring in 7 to 10% and you're spending 20%. You don't want to do that. If you're spending more money than you're making, it's not going to last because it's going to be replenished by you. Now, if you've got friends and family that'll give you money or death benefits that are out there where they can re-up as soon as somebody kick out, then you might decide to be wasteful and not care. But if you set up the trust correctly, where more money is coming into the trust, the money's going to sit in the trust and generate revenue first, and then that money will be distributed to you. You will get a principal of the trust, which is much more effective than getting into spending more than what you make. It'll be more benefit, and then because it's a long-term thing, it's always going to keep growing no matter how much money that you're issued, because you're only going to spend up to the maximum quantity that is issued. You're not going to have to worry about those trusts wearing themselves out during the duration of your lifetime, which means that you can pass that trust on to the next generation. So it is always important for you to be able to make sure that you look into what you're getting your trust for and how you're utilizing your trust. Now, there are other types of trusts that are also irrevocable trusts. And you have the intentionally defective grantor trust, IDGT. And that one is one that's going to place your assets, the assets that are placed there are removed from your estate for state tax purposes, but you continue to pay income tax on the trust assets, allowing them to grow tax free. And this can result in significant tax savings over time. You also have qualified personal residence trust. And this one is actually very interesting because when you have qualified personal residence trust, QPRT, you are allowed to transfer your home to a trust. And this is one of the more simple ones while retaining the right to live there for a set term. Now, if you're going to create a trust like this, and you're probably going to create a 50 to 100 year term, like a lease agreement, where you can stay on this property for the duration of your life, but the trust owns authority of the property while you have right to possess the premises. That is going to reduce taxable value of the home on your estate because you don't own it. I just explained to you about the charitable remainder trust, where you're going to transfer appreciated assets, which means that increases in profits, to an irrevocable trust, where that trust is going to then pay those dividends to a charity. So like if you was to put a bunch of money into Bitcoin, and then you're going to say, oh, well, I made 30-40% out of Bitcoin when Bitcoin's making 80%. And then you say, oh, well, I'm going to take 10% of that and I'm going to give it to charity. That would be a charitable remainder trust kind of situation. And that one provides income to you during your lifetime. And the remainder goes to charity upon your death, reducing estate tax. That's another one that's really good. So let's say you don't have any children. You don't have any children's children. You can do that one as well, where you set it up where you're going to give yourself money. And then when you die, whatever's left over in your estate goes to whatever charity of your choice, because you got nobody else to will it to. The mass quantity of guaranteed deductions that you're going to have for it, that is an irrevocable trust. You will then be able to get those rewards on the back end. Now, if you've got a legacy, you kind of don't want to create one of those. That's why I told you got to pay attention to which trust you're trying to get. Then you have the charitable leads trust. And that one is different from the other charitable trust because this one provides permanent payments to a charity for a set term, like I had explained to you before. So if you want to give them a certain quantity of money out of your profits over a certain period of time, you set it up. And then that would be reduced as a gift or estate tax. So the remainders are always going to go to your beneficiary, and that reduction is going to save you a little bit or a lot of bit of money, depending on how you set it up and depending on how much you're giving. Because you got to remember that after 9/11, not after 9/11, after COVID, they had went from between 30 and 50% of your income being tax deductible from charitable donations, where it's dollar for dollar for a 501c3 donation. Now they're doing up to 100% of the profit that you get can be donated to a charity, and that dollar for dollar donation can be tax deductible. But that's for individuals, not for C corporations. C corporations have a maximum of 10% of their income that can be donated to charity, and a maximum of 20% that can be taxed. So if you added them together, it would be a total of 30% that you would spend. But you have to think that the 10% is deductible. So out of the 20%, you've got 10% that was given to charity, and 10% is your overhead. So you're still maxing out where there's an 80% profit that ends up paying for a portion of your overhead. So if your 40% is your overhead, you're probably not paying taxes on the other 60 to 70%. Just saying. But you got to, again, check with your CPAs and your tax lawyers and everything like that. Get your payroll together and make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do in order for you to be able to check those boxes and make sure that the U.S. government is getting their cut, because everybody's got to eat in business. It's the cost of doing business. But a lot of people can say, well, you might have to eat, but instead of me giving you filet mignon, I give you some ramen noodles. You still eating, but you're not eating good. That's what we do when we start throwing stuff into trust. That's why some people get revocable trust. Those revocable trusts do not get the same estate tax benefits as irrevocable trusts, but the trust may still be subject to income tax, even though the different rates are comparable to individuals. So you're not going to be taxed like the individuals were getting like 10, 12, 25, 40, whatever in tier systems. The trust would probably get a specific amount the same way like an LLC or a C corporation would, but it would still have taxable income because it is a revocable trust, almost like a business. It's just not something that you control. It's separate from you. Some trusts, like a qualified disability trust, may qualify for higher income tax exemptions. And I thought this one was really interesting because one of the things that we talked about at the beginning of the show is like, well, what happens if you're getting money and this trust comes out of nowhere and starts throwing money at you? Does it affect your disability? No, not really. It actually depends on which disability you have, because if you have the SSDI disability, which is based off of the amount of tax credits you earn from your job, then no. But if it is SSI, which is if you've never had a job or you did not accumulate enough work credits from your job to get SSDI, your SSI is for individuals who just can't work. But SSI typically keeps track of all of the money that you claim. And if you claim that you're bringing in a shit ton of money, then they will not give you much money. That's how that shit works. So with that being said, can a qualified disability trust negatively impact your SSI if you're getting large enough distributions? Because SSI sometimes caps the quantity of money that you can be given to like $1,000 a month. And they might be giving you like $1,000 a month. You might be able to total out with $2,000 a month between the money that you're making and the money that you're giving you. But after you cross over that certain amount, they will start taxing you 2 to 1, where for every dollar that you make, they take $2 out of your benefits until you ain't got no money left. So you make $1,500, $1,600, $1,700, and that happens for more than 90 days and they know about it. You're probably going to lose all your benefits. You're going to be sitting here wondering what the fuck happened. That's what happened. Pay attention to what you're doing and why you're doing it, because that's how you can negatively impact your benefits. But for those people who have somebody in their family that is disabled, you've got the qualified disability trust. The qualified disability trusts are specialized trusts that offer tax benefits for individuals with disabilities. And here are the key points that you need to know about it, because it is also a form of irrevocable trust. But this one is designed to benefit individuals with special needs. So these are going to give you heightened tax advantages. And the primary purpose of this is to allow the beneficiary to benefit from trust funds without losing eligibility that reduce trust income tax burdens and has a plethora of requirements to qualify. So those requirements that you need to qualify are going to be way more than the requirements to establish a normal trust. First thing is that it is going to have to be irrevocable. Otherwise, it is not going to be a Q-dis-T. If it is irrevocable, all the beneficiaries must be disabled and receive either SSI or SSDI benefits or both. But if they are collecting SSI and or SSDI, then all of the beneficiaries listed will be able to receive income. If there are individuals that are going to collect income that are not disabled, they would not be on the Q-dis-T trust. Yes, you can make more than one trust. Yes, you will have to pay a bunch of money to set up each one of those trusts. But if you have disabled family and friends that you want to leave money to, you have to set up a trust for them that is separate from the people that aren't disabled. It must, the other thing, let me go back a little bit. The trustee cannot be a grantor trust, which means that The grantor is not the one that's benefiting from the trust. The grantor puts money into the trust. The beneficiary receives money from the trust. The beneficiary, when the trust is established, must be established before the beneficiary is 65. So if you're going to create this trust and you're going to set it up with, say, your grandfather, your father, some shit like that, you have to establish the trust before they are 65 in order for them to qualify to benefit from the trust. So if you got a 70-year-old or 80-year-old father, or a 65, 67, 71-year-old grandfather or father or uncle or brother or something like that, you can't put them on the trust as a beneficiary. Now, if you have somebody that is a good faith person that will look out for your relatives, you can put that person who's under the age of 65 as a beneficiary, under the expectation that they're going to take at least some of the money that they get and take care of your homie or take care of your family. Then you can knock that part out. But they're not required to, because you cannot make a trust that is conditional to the beneficiary doing specific tasks for the money, because once they qualify to receive the money, once the money goes into their hands, it's for them to do. You can do guidelines for the trustee, but you can't really do guidelines for the beneficiary. The living wills might allow for certain guidelines, but I mean that they have to jump through hoops to qualify to gain access to the estate. They don't have to jump through hoops to have the estate. They have to jump through hoops to continue being issued money from the estate. But once the estate is released to their control, the estate can't be taken back just because the grantor doesn't like it or the trustee doesn't like what they're doing with what they were given. Once they get it, it's done. The trust must be funded by someone other than the disabled beneficiary. So for those of us that are setting up the trust and putting all of our assets and everything into the trust, you cannot create the trust yourself where you're going to be the trustee and the beneficiary in a QDST, because you are going to be the one that's going to get the payout. And if you're disabled, you're not supposed to be earning an income to give to a trust for a trust to be able to generate a profit to you, for you to have extra money to give to the trust. So if you're a grantor, you just make sure that there is a beneficiary that's not you that's going to collect the money. If you want to be the beneficiary of a QDST, you have to make sure that the grantor is notated and heavily documented as not you. Whether it's your best friend, whether it's a business that you set up with a partner, the grantor has to not be you. Then you have to look at those really interesting advantages, like QDSTs receiving higher than normal exemptions compared to other trusts, where they had up to $5,050 for 2024. Your income from QDSTs is not subject to the kitty tax, and they're just taxing you for holding money, almost like the holding companies get the extra 20% penalty for not releasing dividends to the shareholders. Something similar to that is the best explanation for kitty taxes. And then the trust pays taxes on income earned, with distributions to beneficiaries deducted from the trust's taxable income. That's going to be where you make your golden ticket, because if the money is being given to you from the trustee, it's a tax write-off. Then the money that the trust makes can be tax deductible based off of the cost of the trust performing the task to generate the revenue, plus the amount of profit that was given to its beneficiary is all written off, as opposed to the dividends tax from interest coming from the earned income tax from wages, where you get taxed twice. Once because the business earned profits, and then a second time because that profit was paid out as an investment interest dividend. So that's a double tax. You just want to pay attention to these things. And when you're paying attention to these things, you're able to say, oh, okay, I see where I went wrong. and iron everything out and get everything where you want it to be at. When you're reporting in administration, your QDIS-T files taxes using the form 1041, which is different from the 1040, and they're going to file this with their employee identification number, because your trust is going to be coming up as a business, not your individual social security number. And then the distribution of the benefits are reported to the beneficiary's personal form 1040, and an independent trustee typically manages the trust. An independent trustee is a non-biased person, because you can put a family member as a trust if you want, but you got to remember, if you piss them off, they're gonna not cooperate with the success of your trust. And they're not legally obligated to cooperate with the success of your trust. They're just legally obligated to, if they're going to execute something with your trust, that they must execute it the way the trust says execute it. But if they don't want to fuck with this no more, and they're not paid to do it, and you don't have the ability to really sue them for not doing what they were supposed to do, that's a situation where it kind of got a tough luck, the situation. So you got to make sure that you get you a third party that's going to make sure that non-biasedly you're going to get your fair share based on the way this contract says you're supposed to get cuts. Now, the other special needs trusts that they have are specialized trusts designed to benefit individuals with disabilities while preventing their eligibility from government benefits to be more enhanced than the QDIS-Ts. So the special needs trust, it's an SNT, has two priorities that goes into effect with it. That trust is going to be funded with assets from someone other than the beneficiary. So like if your mom, your dad, your cousin, your ex-girlfriend, or whatever is throwing money into your account, it's going to build its wealth. This is third-party SNTs. This is commonly used for advanced planning for loved ones with special needs, somebody who can't fend for themselves. And then this can be included in a will or a living trust, or as a standalone trust, where it just does what it does on its own. Your first party SNTs are going to be funded with the beneficiary's own assets, and that's going to come from inheritance, lawsuits, settlements, alimony, whatever, and also called self-settled or a D4A trust. So this must be established before the beneficiary turns 65. So you can get you a regular special needs trust, but unlike the qualified trust, you can be the guarantor on your special needs trust. You just can't be the guarantor on your QDIS-T trust. So the purposes behind that is going to be preserving the eligibility for means tested by government benefits like Medicaid and SSI, meaning that you're going to have a shit ton of money in your trust, but you're going to issue yourself a little bit of money at a time so that you're meeting the guidelines of income received, whether it's taxable or non-taxable income, the leverage upon income received, where you're not losing out your benefits because you get too much money in a short period of time. It's going to allow the beneficiaries to receive supplemental support, and that's going to be crucial to maintaining their benefits. And then it's going to provide funds for expenses not covered by government programs, the same way 2025 is about to not cover Medicaid and Medicare. If you have a trust that is designed to cover the cost of Medicaid and Medicare and then send you the difference, your health insurance is paid for out of pocket, even though you don't have the money to pay for it out of pocket, because your trust can afford to pay for your health insurance out of pocket. So the first party SNTs is going to be beneficiaries, like I said before, that are going to be disabled and under the age of 65. And it's going to include a Medicaid payback provision. And that's because, if you don't know, they advance you money under Medicaid. And if you gain extra money, they're going to expect you to pay back into that pot. Most people don't, but they expect you to pay back into that pot. That's why if you have a Medicaid claim open and then you get into a car insurance accident, they take money out of your car insurance accident and go and throw it down on that Medicaid situation. So the less you report, the less you have to deal with. But if somebody finds that you missed a spot, I guarantee you those audits makes you pay back penalties going back 10 years. So you don't think that you're gonna smoky and the bandit your way out of not having to pay people because you threw your money into a trust. That doesn't work that way. So trusts are not designed for you to be able to um, get out there and evade Johnny Law the way you see your boy paying his lawyer to pay adult freelance workers out the government money, and that is considered presidential business and not a crime at the same time. But if you or I was to give money directly to an adult freelance worker, us and the adult freelance worker will be in a holding cell, probably damn near right next to one another for the whole action. The way them boys in Polk County got locked up, 200 of them, again, getting locked up for the stuff they're doing out there in Polk County, coming out of Disney World. It's just crazy, man. It's crazy. But when you're considering trying to get you an NST, one of the things that you may want to remember, because while you can qualify as a QDIST, you got to remember that the tax advantages are pretty steep, or they're pretty good for you. But the entitlement for higher personal exemptions is going to be as much as like 3,800, as dated back in 2012, compared to the regular trust that's only going to get 100 in qualifiable deductions. So you can potentially allow both the trust and beneficiary to claim personal exemptions, which could definitely maximize the quantity of profits that you get off of the trust, which means that you overall don't have to pay as much. You might end up paying like 20% of what you would have originally paid. So if you was paying 20%, now you're probably paying like 4% because they shaved off a bunch because of this trust here. So depending on the source of funding, you can establish the right type of NS or SNT by using either beneficiary's assets or third-party assets, and then this is going to require careful consideration for the beneficiary to meet the needs of their circumstances. Then you need to make state plans for the family with special needs individuals, because you got to make sure that everybody is covered under that particular type of concept. Now, your special needs trust are going to be a very complex thing to utilize, but it's going to give you the guidance and ability to establish a estate, a large quantity of stuff that you can manage correctly. A lot like Red Remington from Blacklist. Like, he had stuff all over the world that it took him a few months before he decided to pass to get rid of his whole estate and tear down his whole operation before he passed on, so that nobody else would inherit his operation, which leaves him the milestone of the most powerful crime boss in the show, because nobody could take over his empire. Once you can take over your empire, you're just a figurehead. But if your empire dies with you, then your power dies with you, which means nobody else can hold the same style of power that you held. That's one of the ways that you, I guess, put yourself into history. Now, they're going to offer you a little bit of value for tools like enhancing the quality of life for the individuals with disabilities. So when you're doing this for people that you care about, these are going to give you a lot more flexibility for those special needs individuals, because the trust is going to be dedicated to paying for certain shit like Medicaid, Medicare, other health insurances, medications that your health insurance doesn't cover, doctor's appointments, tests. Think about kids with like cancer or any type of organ failure, somebody that's very sickly on a donor list or something like that, where they have extensive medical bills. This particular type of trust will look out for them while raising enough money to keep providing for them so that they can have a better way to go, instead of doing without certain types of medical treatment because they can't afford to make it. QDISTs are going to focus primarily on tax benefits, but special needs trusts primarily aim to protect the governmental benefits and the eligibility to those governmental benefits for the beneficiary. So that's going to be the difference between the two. The other thing you want to think about, oh, we're getting close to the end of the list, y'all. The cutest teas can be powerful for your family to plan for individuals with disabilities, offering both financial protection as well as tax advantages. But you just got to remember the crucial requirement to consult with experts that know about this. So definitely make sure that you go talk to an attorney. I just had real quick. The reason why we didn't put the book on the show was because UPS gave it to USPS and USPS sent it back to Michigan. So now Michigan's sending it back here. So I'm like, what the fuck? So probably going to get it either later this week or early next week. But I notified him earlier today. I spent 2 hours on the phone trying to get the investment book, but he has sent the postal people sent the shit back. And I'm like, why the fuck would you do that? The other thing was the other product, the deck of cards I was talking about, they're actually coming this way. So that one should be here in the next day or two. So I might actually air the cards on the show. I got to do a box opening. So I might have to do 2 box openings because I'm going to do open the mail box opening to see what it looks like. And then I'm going to like open it here on the live podcast later this week and talk about these playing cards and really kind of get a good gist of what these playing cards do and how they function. But it's supposed to be something that's really good with relationships. So, Red, I'll send you some links about this shit. You copy and paste them, click those links, and you might be able to get your little cheap deck of cards that you and your girlfriend can play when you guys are meeting each other when she's taking holiday breaks. Because I know that we're in October. Romania celebrates Thanksgiving just like the rest of the world. So you guys will have a little bit of time in between the fall term of college and winter break. And y'all can play this game and like ask each other questions and learn more about each other. Even though y'all been together for a long time, y'all be able to work some stuff out and really like formulate a bigger bond and have fun together, because there's some rules and regulations with the game that's pretty laid back, where there's typically no loser. There's no point system. You just kind of like either win by learning more about your partner or lose by not participating. That's kind of how it goes. There is no ins and outs outside of that, but it's a pretty fun game from what I've heard. So as soon as I get it, I'll be able to go over the details with you guys as soon as I get it. And the book should be here sometime next week. So if you've been following us on YouTube, you see that we've got a lot of our week planned out for the rest of October, but there are some gaps in October on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays, because I'm trying to fit in the show that's going to be talking about these affiliate products that or not so much affiliate products. There would be more branded content where collaborations with other people's brands, where I would be promoting their stuff and potentially bringing them up onto the show in addition to that to talk about their stuff. So I might show their stuff one week and then coordinate with them another week where they would show up onto the show and we would all be able to get it done. So as I try to figure out how to make it do what it do, because I mean, if I'm airing a show at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, 5 Pacific, if they're in Central Time or East Coast Time, they're like, God damn, I'm going to bed when your ass hosting the show. But, you know, depending on who they are and which part of the world they're in, they might be like, oh yeah, I'm just waking up and I'm ripped and ready to go. So just keep in mind, that's why when I was looking at this part, I was like, oh yeah, the consultations about how to invest your estate, we're going to be covering that as soon as we get some more information. So the laws that are governing the trust, I told y'all before, is that's going to be something that's going to be specifically involving where you establish your trust. So you want to make sure that the first thing that you do, if you're going to set up a trust where you're going to try to get some cuts as the beneficiary that you would not have gotten as the trustee, you want to make sure that you go and look at the state laws that are sitting out there and find out which states that don't charge inheritance taxes, which states that have certain types of benefits that'll prevent you as the beneficiary from having to cash out during tax season. And then you, regardless of what state you're in, are going to receive dividends, while all of the assets that are in a non-taxable state is going to not get taxed. And then you're going to reap some rewards off of that, where you'll be able to benefit a shit ton off of creating a trust. I know that while starting up a trust is going to cost a lot of money, take a lot of time, cost a lot of effort, you got to think about the amount of money that you're not going to be spending on taxes over the years versus the ability to make sure that the people that matter to you will be able to get access to your assets when you no longer need your assets will outweigh the cost of setting it up. So I strongly encourage for you to take the time to at least get one trust created in your life. The same way back when I was a teenager, people were saying, "Oh, get your living will set up." You gotta be like Kobe. You gotta have every little detail updated. But he did it like once a year, and it wasn't enough because something happened halfway through the year, and he had one that was 6 months old that the information wasn't updated. You got to do it as soon as a change happens, and that is a revocable trust. As soon as a change happens, you've got to make that change. If you're going to be trying to establish an irrevocable trust, as soon as you're going to add more to the trust, add more beneficiaries, add more assets, you've got to, as soon as something qualifies for it, as soon as it happens, you got to do it. So if your girl is pregnant, if they allow the unborn child to be put into a trust, put the unborn child into a trust. If the child's got to be born, soon as you get a birth certificate, put the child into a trust. When you do that, then you're able to put your assets into something. And if something happens where 3 days after the child is born, shit goes south, you're still good because you already established it the day the child was born. Especially if you're getting health insurance for the child, and something happens where the child doesn't make it to 20, something happens where the child doesn't make it to 10 or 15, you've got the death benefits going to the trust. All the other children that survive, when those kids reach their middle age, they've got benefits from the loss of a loved one, paying for their standard of living for the remainder of their life. When you start thinking about how the top 1% keeps their money rotating out, where the rich get richer, it's because they make more than they spend. They invest what they make in all the right places. They pay people to invest for them so that they don't waste a bunch of time trying to invest and then invest wrong because they don't have the knowledge to invest. Then they find other ways to bring in more money so that the money that they bring in, they can give to their investor so that their investor can turn that money into more money. Where when you're making money for showing up. You're not making money for backbreaking labor. You're making money for your appearance. And when you're making money for your appearance, typically everywhere you go, you're getting paid. When you reach that type of lifestyle, it's going to be too difficult for you to bend over and pick up $100 bill because you're getting paid to go from one place to the next in a certain period of time. And the time it takes for you to bend over slows you down. Nobody's going to stop for a penny on the ground when they're off to get $100. The value of a penny to a man that's chasing hundreds of dollars is the value of $100 to a man that's chasing millions. You just got to make it make sense for you. So since I've covered everything that I could potentially cover with the trust, besides giving you some average price ranges and other such details that you could probably utilize to kind of get you a start, I know that some of the cheapest contracts that you can establish is going to be between $300 to $500 because the consultation for attorneys is typically going to be around $250 to $300. And typically, if it's not going to be about $500 to set up the trust itself, the difference between setting up the trust and paying the lawyer to help you set up the trust is still going to equivalent something around the baselines of about $500. But when you start dealing with highly complex trusts, different states, multiple assets, you're dealing with a lot more. Laws, rules, and regulations than what you would if you just had like just one house thrown up into a trust so that your mortgage won't foreclose on your house. But I mean, that's the only thing that happens there. That outside of the small one that's really easy, when you start talking about like 30 houses, 5 apartment complexes, $1 million in stocks, Bitcoin, offshore accounts, all that shit. When you start talking about all that, like it's going to cost you a little bit to get it organized. It starts going from being 3 to 5 pages to being like 50 pages. And when it starts getting that big, it starts costing you somewhere between $1,500 and $10,000 to set the shit up. So, and then you got to pay somebody to manage that shit, and that's going to be an hourly salary based on how many times a month they're going to have to do something with that account, because a trustee is responsible for the investment portfolio and the dividend recovery, and then adding the assets to the estate, and then dispersing the capital to the beneficiaries. So it's a lot more to it than just putting your name on a piece of paper and watching the money. You're going to have to grind out a little bit. And as a trustee, if you're getting paid by the hour to grind out for this account, you want to make sure that you're paying this person enough money where the person's not going to fuck you over or let you get fucked over. If they're not going to deliberately do something to you, their negligence won't negatively impact your wealth. So as long as you put everything you were supposed to put everything together and you're following all the laws, rules, and regulations, you will be set. And so are your kids, and so are your grandkids, and so are your grandkids. Because if you're setting it up where your kids will get it, and then you're teaching your kids financial wealth and literacy, they will understand these trusts and they will understand how they function, and then they will contact the trustee and add children to the already existing trust as they get children, and then redirect their assets to the trust and redirect death benefits to the trust, keeping the trust going. That way, down the line, you have third generation wealth, fourth generation wealth, where the fourth generation is more rich than the first generation. But if you don't teach your kids how to save and invest money, first generation can develop wealth, and second generation can live off the wealth, and the third generation will get whatever's left, and then the wealth is gone. If the third generation even can get access to the wealth, because if the second generation doesn't generation to the wealth, once the beneficiary is no longer in existence, the trust has nothing to pay to. And then it's just an account gaining a shit ton of money. That's how that works. So you never want that, but if you don't have a lineage, you kind of can't choose, can't help that. So I've said all I can say today about trust. I'm gonna go ahead and walk out of TikTok first. We're gonna see, because they sent me a some kind of something. And I gotta double checking what's going on. So yeah, let me go ahead and walk out of that and see what they got going on there. Oh yeah, because they interfered with my situation. Poor. Because they interfered with my live stream. I'm like, yeah, y'all suck. Y'all interfere with my live stream. I'm putting it out there. I don't understand why they would interfere with our ability to make money for us. Well, I can see why they don't want to do it. They want other people to become. They don't want other people to become as wealthy. They don't want people to be in the know. So just like I told them, I was like, yeah, it'll it'll pay for itself after a while. So let's see what do we got going on here as I get ready to wrap this show up. I didn't even do my daily walkout. I was just like, you know what, fuck TikTok, just walk right out of the door because they tried to fuck out of me. I'm sitting over here looking like, how they gonna try to hit me with a flag for talking about land trust? Like, there nobody owns patent rights on the public knowledge that is land trust. Like, what kind of shit is that? But let me see, because I know it got to go to the profile because I was in the studio, and the studio does not. Got to go to notifications. Oh. And let's see. No, I'm going to tell them no. The appeal process. So I'm about to give them hell about this appeal process. So the appeal process is not a valid way to enforce community guidelines. When original content is flagged for being displayed where public knowledge is discussed. Look, and they didn't even give me a lot of room to write it all. So that is, I would have wrote him a book. I would have wrote him a whole book. Live visibility. Oh, so they restricted my live visibility during my live. They ain't shit for real. So it's not eligible for recommendations and restricted to search results because it may contain unoriginal or reproduced content. This is the line with the For You feed eligibility standards under our community guidelines. So how is a reproduced content they have to explain, like, how is the live podcast where I am talking about something different every day reproduced content? They're saying unoriginal or reproduced content. There is nothing unoriginal or reproduced about a live off the cuff talking about something different every day content. And they're saying this is in line with the For You feed eligibility standard. Is that because they're talking about the live podcast? They're not talking about the shorts. They're not talking about and I don't have any tags on the show at all. Do you understand how they curve me? Like, there are no tags on the show at all. Just the name of the show of the day, and then the category that we're supposed to be speaking on, and then the brief description of what this episode is supposed to be about. That's it. There is nothing else there. But these jackasses are gonna come and tell me, "Oh no, we're not gonna let your shit be showed." I'm like, "Boy, y'all full of shit." But like I said, hey, they're gonna tell me that they're not gonna let everybody see what I did with the live, but shorts right after that. Because that's what I'm trying to find out. I'm like, well, where's the community guidelines? It says read our community guidelines. So let's see. They allow a range of content on our platform, but also recognize that not all of it may be suitable for younger audiences. That's not applying to us. What is nope, it wasn't helpful. Uh Accuracy on the information wasn't there. Let's see. It is safety, integrity, authenticity. They have misinformation. That's not what we were flagged for. They get us for elections, which we talk about. We don't talk about elections. We talk about politics. But they don't like us to talk about laws, processes, and procedures that govern the organization and implementation of elections. But we don't talk about the elections. We just talk about how the people's policies suck and how everybody's after the wrong thing. They talk about civil processes, such as referendums, ballot. I don't talk about none of that. Or the census. I don't talk about none of that. And then final outcomes of the election. I don't talk about none of that. They're talking about promoting or providing instructions on illegal participation. I don't do that. And electoral interference. Now, I've talked about how that's a hypothetical. They say including intimidation of voters. So I don't do intimidations of voters. So let's see. AI generated content. I don't see it, guys. Oh, there it is for you. I see it down there at the bottom for you. Let's scroll down to the for you eligibility standards. So the for you feed is a unique TikTok feature that uses a personalized recommendation system to allow you to discover a breadth of content creators and topics. In determining what gets recommended, the system takes into account factors including likes, shares, comments, searches, diversity of content, and popular videos. So they're saying certain types of content may be fine if seen occasionally, but problematic if viewed in clusters. This includes content such as dieting, extreme fitness, sexual suggestiveness, sadness, and over generalized mental health information. This type of content may be eligible for you, but if we will interrupt repetitive content patterns to ensure it is not viewed too often. Safeguarding diversity. So when I'm talking, so help me understand. If I was talking about relationships last week or yesterday, no, yet what was I talking about yesterday? Yesterday was Monday. Monday, I was talking about Kamala Harris. I was talking about her focus on half of her political ballot because she was focusing on female rights to abort children, but she's she's eliminating the male's right to make a decision on wanting to be a father, and then nothing else in her political campaign supports the Democratic Party. But she also comes back and supports the platform with Biden and the asylum that they set up for the people who are crossing the borders hundreds of thousands at a time, and they're giving them asylum, and asylum comes with like shelter and food and stuff like that, which is the stuff that the American homeless population doesn't get. And then they are taking tax dollars and putting in effort to help these homeless people from Mexico find jobs and go back to Mexico, but they're not taking that same money and invest it in homeless Americans, to helping those Americans get jobs so that those homeless Americans stop being homeless. But we could put all this effort into another country. Now, that's what we was talking about on Monday. Sunday, we were talking about relationships. Saturday, we were talking about relationships. Friday, we were talking about relationships. Thursday, we were talking about relationships. And we were talking about Monday, we were talking about I think we were talking about politics, we were talking about money, we were talking about investments. So how is it that the first time I start talking about land trust, and I told them last week, I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about this. They hit me with, oh, you can't do it. So they're saying that some content that is stereotype, insinuative, something that is for account holders under the age of 16, disordered eating, which we don't talk about, dangerous activity or challenges, we don't talk about, nudity or body exposure, we don't talk about, sexual suggestive topics, we don't talk about, shocking and graphic content, we don't show, we barely talk about, misinformation, conspiracy theories that are unfounded, and claim that certain events or situations are carried out by covert or powerful groups such as, quote unquote, the government or secret societies. I don't talk about that. Moderate harm or health misinformation, such as unproven recommendations for how to treat a minor illness. Repurposed media, such as showing a crowd a music concert and suggesting it is a political protest, misrepresenting authorized, authoritative sources, such as selecting references of certain scientific data to support a conclusion that is countered to the findings of a study. So this is all about unverified claims related to an emergency or unfolding event, potential high harm, misinformation. This is all about lying. We didn't do any of that shit. They actually flagged us for specifically reproduce or unoriginal content that is imported or uploaded without any new or creative edits, such as content with someone else's visible watermark or superimposed logo. Low quality content such as extremely short clips or exclusive GIFs based videos. The only thing I can think about that may have triggered that particular type of scenario, but it wasn't a watermark, would have been the short clip that uploaded at the beginning of the show, because I was trying a new trailer, the opening trailer. So maybe I'll look into that, but that's original. It took me 45 minutes to create that. So where would that not be? And then it was a picture-in-picture situation where they're going to say that it is not original content. It's my content. How the fuck is it? I don't get it. So what I'll do is I'll kick that shit up before I start TikTok. Then I'll start TikTok so that we're live on YouTube first. Then we'll start TikTok and see if these some bitches kick rocks. Because I ain't did shit that would technically violate, but it's my content. So I'm still not violating that what you call it. And the other one is commercial disclosures and paid promotions. So marketing content that is not disclosed using the content disclosure setting. So I would have to find a content disclosure setting and put it up there and say, hey, this is a marketed item. If I'm going to do that, they have live content with a primary purpose of directing people off the platform. They didn't flag me for that. And the primary purpose was not to direct them off the platform. It was to get them to join the other platform, because TikTok encourages us to allow people to support both platforms. And then we have live concepts that is ineligible for the For You page, including content shared by a guest in a multimedia live. Protective groups, potential harms, restating all of the other ones that we talked about before. So they're not allowing for, if you bring somebody onto your live, they're not going to allow you to bring that person onto your live and use that person because you as a content creator are responsible for what they you are responsible for what they do while they're on your show. So yeah, I covered all the bases. So I know that a lot of content creators tend to say fuck this shit, I'm out, when they start getting flagged by the brand that they're streaming on. So I don't harbor any ill will towards those people who say, nah, you're not gonna fuck me over. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna do my own thing somewhere else. I understand why they do that, and one of the reasons why they do that is because those particular types of flags that hit, like TikTok hit me because I'm talking about land trust. It's like there is nothing violent about that. It was a very informative a live podcast, and because I'm talking about something that they don't want me to talk about, they're like, oh, we're not going to show your podcast to anybody. Well, fuck you. I'll put the fucking podcast up there later and you'll see it. Yeah, I get what I've been averaging like 3,000 views a day on TikTok. And there's only like 106 fuckers on there right now, and that have actually followed the podcast over there. I got like 15,000 people over here, but over there I only got 160 because I wasn't really pushing the podcast until like a couple months ago. So like I was just set back at the oh, that's not what I was looking for. I was set back at the fact that they but all I did was restricted. I didn't get a strike. I'm looking at like it's not suspended. It's just that they wouldn't show my shit. I'm like, you bitch. But it's a setback because it's like, man, I got like 60,000 people watching that particular one, where I got less than that on average because I'm redirecting everybody to my live over on YouTube, and I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah, look, we get a decent quantity coming from Twitch, but when we're looking at TikTok is starting to become more competitive with YouTube. So we're probably going to see a lot more pushback from TikTok when we are going live. But remember, I told you before, I'm probably going to have the Twitch, YouTube, and Twitter primarily on the podcast first, and then kind of segue TikTok into the podcast as TikTok starts showing promise, because it's a waste of investment if they're going to flag me for putting my show up, putting my own content up, because even YouTube will say that you can't release the same video inside of the same like short period of time. And the little short that I had that came up at the beginning of the show, which is the only thing I could think of that could justify what they're talking about, is, let me see if I can show it to you. This clip right here. Take a look at this. You seen that? That's it. That's all that happened. It popped up. It was like the first 20 seconds of the show. That's it. And I created that a year ago. It's in a save file on my laptop. I even deleted it off of the previous YouTube platform because it was no longer getting views, but it got a decent quantity of views when I first made it. So I was like, all right. I said, okay, let me see how this works. I don't really like how the picture-in-picture shows up. This one is more effective because it covers the whole screen. So I'm gonna end up making a different one anyway because I got to get it to resize because that one is, I think, a 2x3, and then the sound isn't quite that good. So I'm gonna have to make a different one that's gonna have better sound if I'm gonna have sound, and then have a 9x16 screen. So because that one was made as a short, so that I could try to redirect when I first started doing podcasting. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and piece everything together and try to get me one that takes up the whole screen and hopefully has a playable audio file. But remember, I was having trouble with my internet, so shit wasn't going the way it was supposed to go because I had to re-download it from a thumb drive. I had it on like a 268 gigabyte SD card, and I had to re-download that to the podcast in order to or to my laptop in order to get it to come up here, and that download file didn't really work the way I wanted it to work. So troubleshooting all the new stuff that StreamYard has given us to kind of make live podcasts better. So I said, well, yeah, let me go ahead and fuck with it because I mean it's my shit. So I throw it up there. And it didn't do what I wanted it to do. But now that I see what it's doing, I'm like, yeah, I don't like that shit. But I didn't already started the live podcast. And the only thing that's different between live podcasts and post recordings is that you cannot change the live podcast. Like as it happens, it just happens. You got to wing it. The show must go on. So I will sidebar from a professional podcast attempt to fuck this. I'm talking to my homeboys because these sons of bitches tried to fuck out of me. That because I mean shit, why not? Why not? If one of y'all jumped on and started having a real deal conversation with me about something that wasn't in line with what the hell I was just talking about, because it's a live podcast, and I encourage you guys to come on and have conversations with me about this, that, and everything in between. If you came and talked to me about something that wasn't today's topic, I'm going to pause today's topic, entertain your topic, and then when your topic is over, I'm going to go back to the topic. Pick it up where I left off because the show was about one thing and we segued into something else, and it just makes the show even longer. So those of us that are going to watch the podcast and enjoy the show, learn some shit, and then benefit from the stuff that I put together on the podcast. By all means, I'm going to encourage you guys to do that. And then what I'll do for TikTok, because they're being dicks, is I will make a short out of it and put it up every 4 hours for the rest of the fucking the rest of the week. They're gonna tell me, you can't go live on the For You page. Like the internet service wasn't really working well enough for me to go live on the For You page anyway. But for you to restrict my fucking access, because I'm talking about how the 99% of Americans can make themselves more successful. And for those of you in other countries, this stuff does exist for y'all too. Y'all just gotta do it a little bit different, but it's still there. It's just that your laws in your country is a little bit different from our laws in our country. But when it comes down to the passing down of assets and controlling shares of stuff, the laws are almost the same in most places. It's just certain differences where you can do certain things, can't do other things. You can give a lot, but you can't give so much. You got to pay taxes on some stuff. You don't got to pay taxes on others. The value of things is going to differ because America is offsetting greed with the distribution of income for poor people to waste money on greed, so that greed can fund the distribution of the whole trickle down effect. You can't keep 99% of the wealth amongst 1% of the population and have a functioning country unless 1% of the wealth is being distributed to the population, is redistributed on a regular basis so that everything is still getting paid for. That's just the way it is. So, yeah, I understand that everybody got to eat, but I'm just looking at them like, y'all can't be trying me like this because this is my fucking content. How are you going to tell me it's unoriginal? What the best that you can do is come back and say, oh, that video was on your page, which it wouldn't be, from November of last year, but repurposed my own content for my own podcast is still my original content. Believe it or not, like they could tell me that that's not the case, but I did not take somebody else's content and put it on my podcast. And when we have aired other people's clips on our podcast, you didn't complain about that, but you complain if you're complaining about that. That was my stuff that I put on my podcast, and you're gonna tell me I can't do that. That's all right. They'll see me tomorrow. They'll see me tomorrow. I'll be on that bitch. And I got time because the next contract that I got to work out is going to be in like 12 hours. So I've got time. I'll be able to sit here and piece together a decent size, Oh, I had got me a VPN because the AVG that I was using, it negatively impacted my situation. And I wasn't able to even see a lot of the stuff that I put up because of the safe mode, restricted access. So I'm like, well, it's adult content, so I don't really give a fuck about safe mode for other people not being able to see my podcast. But I mean, anybody who doesn't give a shit about safe mode, I am going to ride my wave on my podcast, and I'm going to make sure that I blow it up to the best of my ability where, yeah, people are going to, you're going to come whether you got safe mode on or not. But the other thing is that because I'm talking about like, everything under the sun, whether it's controversial content or non-controversial content, I'm not going to dial it back a little bit just so that they can unrestrict some of my videos. Now, I don't give a fuck about that shit. I would prefer for the people who can see my videos to come to my videos, watch my videos, and give them either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, than to have 100% of the population be able to see my videos and half of the people that see my videos report my videos, so that I'd be dealing with content violations and community guidelines violations when I clearly did not violate any community guidelines violations. Like, take, for example, with TikTok, I can't get on TikTok and make a comment in the comment section without somebody reporting my statement, when I don't have to say anything hateful, anything derogatory. I could say something like holster up, and all of a sudden contact violation. Like, bro, what? I could say, oh, she works hard, content violation. How? What community guideline? Like, are you just like deleting my content because you don't want me to say shit? Like, what? But I don't even say, I make it a point not to say negative and derogatory things towards people, and I make it a point not to use hate speech or bully fight speech, because I don't want to have that kind of stuff on my podcast. When you're fucking up, I'm going to say that you're fucking up, but I will never call somebody stupid. I'll never say that somebody's an idiot. I will never degrade their mentality because they're doing stupid shit. I'm not going to call somebody stupid because they're doing stupid shit, but I will tell them that they are doing stupid shit, because that it negatively impacts their agenda. It don't even have to impact me. It just negatively impacts their agenda. And I mean, if I'm giving people advice on how to improve themselves, improve their finances, improve their social interactions and their relationships, improve their social interaction in general, and you know, they're fucking up their own objective, and I tell them, hey, you're screwing things up for yourself. I mean, I'm not going to tell them that they're stupid. I'm just going to say, hey, if you want to succeed, you can't do that. And then they have to recognize and realize that, you know, change is needed. I'm not a typical kind of life coach. I mean, I can't tell you that I know everything about everything, but I know enough about enough, either based on personal experience or observation of people near me that have done and said some of the things that I tell y'all don't do and don't say and avoid, because that's going to keep you from experiencing some of the negative stuff that I've seen or experienced myself. So, I mean, if I'm not dealing with linear generational knowledge where I'm learning from my ancestors, I'm learning from firsthand experience. And anybody can give you positive advice. You do not have to have a PhD, even though I've got like 3-4 degrees. Whether or not you want to count my associate's degree as one of them depends on how many degrees that I got. But the level of education that I have doesn't change the fact that a third grade dropout that have been through some shit from bad choices can tell you don't make those bad choices because those choices are bad and those choices will negatively impact your future. They could still be making those bad choices, knowing that those choices are bad and just been used to the consequences, but still be able to tell you don't go down a negative path that I went down because it didn't work out for me. So no matter who they are, no matter who you are, you can always give somebody positive advice. But what you have to do is you have to make sure that while you're giving positive advice to somebody, that you have to make sure that that positive advice is followed by somebody being able to learn from what you're saying. Because like I tell people all the time, you can't say, do as I say, not as I do. And then, they're supposed to just follow your lead. You got to be able to rationalize it. Even though I know that smoking is wrong, if I'm going to be a smoker, I understand the negative consequences of me smoking and still being on this breathalyzer, but for you who hasn't started smoking, don't get hooked on smoking because you're going to be wasting a bunch of money. I understand I waste a bunch of money. I just have gotten so used to it that I don't know any other way. I know another way. I just choose not to do it, but I still smoke because I smoke. If that's the kind of person that you are, then you're still going to say, hey, it's not a good idea to make this a habit. Because all the money, sometimes I think about all the money I'm wasting on not that and not doing that I could have done something else with it. If that's the mentality that you have, then you could teach somebody else not to do something that you're doing. If you're an alcoholic and you recognize it, every now and again, when you want to buy something and you don't have enough money, you look back at all the money you spent on alcohol in the past month or the past 2 months or the past 6 months and say, shit, if I would have saved that money, I could have bought this right now. If I would have saved this much money over the past such a period of time that I wasted on getting drunk, and I would not have to be wishing I had money for this. Even those self-realizations in the moment, you could tell somebody who hasn't started drinking that, like, yo, bro, I understand throwing back one every now and again, but don't make it a habit because like I regret the money I throw away on this when I really need money. But when I don't really need money, I'm not thinking about it. If that's the mentality that you have, you can still teach somebody else to do better. That's one of the reasons why we learned that mentorship is a way of life. You learn from your mistakes, you learn from mistakes of the people around you, and then you teach the people around you who have not learned from those mistakes not to make those mistakes. That's accountability across, because you were taught by your mentor. It's accountability across. You can be mentored by people on your level. You can be mentored by people above your level. And then you mentor down to the people who have not made it to where you are yet. So as you climb the levels of the success, everybody that's on your level, you can teach them, they can teach you. Everybody that's above your level, they can teach you. And everybody below your level, while they can teach you something that you don't know, you are teaching them how to get to your level. It's a lot like reaching a certain level when you're climbing a mountain, and then you throw a rope down and you pull them up. And as they're pulling up, you're climbing up even higher. That's what you're supposed to be doing in life. If common knowledge was common knowledge, we would not have people getting paid millions of dollars for you to ask them a question. And it's funny because even on this podcast, there are so many people. Y'all watch me for free. They got people who paid $100 in 10 minutes to watch a 6-hour podcast because of the violations that swing across the screen, like the one that happened tonight. And what can we do about that? What can we do about that? For those of us that podcast, we've got to adapt. We've got to overcome. We've got to find ways to speed past the dysfunction. And if we can't, if we've got a large enough followership that doesn't mind paying for the membership, while we'll lose a lot of followership by switching over to a paid-only platform, if we switched over to a paid-only platform, the only people that's on the platform are people who are paying to watch us, which means that you want to see this. The people who choose to watch us because we're free, it's like, I can watch it or I cannot. But the people who pay to watch us literally come to see what we got going on. And I just tell people all the time, hey, look, this is how it is. Just go to the YouTube side because we're going to be here. You could go to the Twitch side. I've told them a couple times before, you could go to the Twitch side. You can go to the TikTok side. We had one person that told me, oh, I tried to get in. It wouldn't let me in Twitch. That's because you're trolling. because Twitch say that you can jump into my live whenever you want to if you've had an account for more than 24 hours. So if you didn't have an account today, you can't jump in that bitch today. You got to wait till tomorrow and jump in. You know, I actually had it set at one point in time where you had to be an active member of Twitch for like 30 days before you could jump into my live. And then I thought about it. I was like, nah, fuck it. Let them come in. Instead of me prohibiting people from jumping into my live and saying something stupid, I said, well, I'm going to just censor certain comments, certain hashtags, certain links. That way you can't throw an inappropriate link into my live. You can't throw inappropriate comments into my live. You can only jump in and have a rational conversation with me. I can throw inappropriate comments into my live because it's my fucking live, but nobody else can throw inappropriate comments into my live. So that just helps me protect myself with the community guidelines. So the only person that can get me censored, the only person that can get me banned is myself, as long as I make sure that I don't allow anybody else to jump up here and behave in ways that I have not already behaved. That way I'm good. And then if somebody does manage to take their top off or something like that, I can censor that, cut it out of the end screen video, and then have the regular video where their stupidity is not involved in the rest of the video. And notice, I'm talking about their actions being stupid, not them being stupid, because their actions were stupid actions, but they are not being called stupid. And that's one of the things that because I know that some people think that doing certain things is funny. There's no such thing as a wrong question. It's just a inappropriate time to ask. So if I have people that are coming onto the podcast, I got respect for the podcast, and they want to get up here and have a good time. Even if you want to give shout outs to your friends, even if you want to just tell your loved ones that you're thinking about them, where they're watching a podcast on a different side of the country, and you're watching a podcast and they can hear you, give them a shout out like we used to do back in the day on the radio, you know, special shout out to the loved ones and stuff like that. That is when, you know, you can come up and just, you know, do shout outs or whatever outside of, you know, the general conversation. Or you can come up and join in on the general conversation, whether you're in the comment section or you're live on the screen. The way Joe came up on the screen, showing us his villa that he got his Airbnb when he took his family out on vacation before the hurricane started hitting. The fact is, you can do whatever you got to do to get up here and get your 15 seconds of fame. And I'll make a short out of it. So Joe didn't just get up on the live show. Joe got up on the live show, and then Joe was a 3-minute short trailer on the YouTube platform for the past 2 months, because he jumped up there and I put Joe up there because, you know, as long as he's appropriate, I'm appropriate, we're all appropriate, you know, grown men, we doing grown man shit. This is what this podcast is for. This podcast is for the fellas. This podcast isn't for people that want to make excuses, people who don't want to take accountability, people who don't want to take responsibility, people who want to blame somebody else for the fact that they fucked up. Look, notice, even when they accused me of fucking up, I sat there and tried to figure out, how did I fuck this up? And then, even though I'm hypothesizing on a possible outcome, I'm going to change it to make sure that when I go live tomorrow, they're not going to tell me the same shit. See, there's some people that when I talk about how, you know, they refuse to change, when they call themselves a 10 out of 10 and they refuse to change, they're sitting here recognizing that more than one person has said that this behavior is a problem. Not that they are a problem, that this type of behavior is a problem. And instead of them recognizing that this behavior needs to change, they will try to justify it. They'll shame you for it. They'll make excuses for it. Oh, it's not me. I don't know nobody who behaved that way. You lying. You in denial, because as soon as you can tell me that somebody that you know was out of control with somebody that they know, or somebody that you know did something that you normally would not have done to somebody else, they out of control. So in those scenarios, you understand that out of control behavior, we, the victims of the out of control behavior, say that needs to stop. Now, if you can agree that if the situation was happening to you, you would want it to not happen, well, the rest of us that's still experiencing it is going to say that it needs to stop. And if it needs to stop, it needs to stop. So you can easily say that while I don't do it, I have seen at least somebody on social media, if not somebody on TV, if not somebody in real life, do it, whether I know them or not. Because out of 155 million of one group, versus 155 or 157 million of the other half, there is a reasonable 40 to 60% of people that do get down like that. And that is the social class, which is why we experience it 70 to 90% of the time, which is why we complain about it 100% of the time, because we see it too often to not complain about it. It's like if you lived in a complex where your house is at the beginning of the entrance and every fifth car is speeding. Not all the cars are speeding, but every fifth car is speeding every day. If 20 cars pass your house, 5 of them are speeding or 4 of them are speeding, you're going to be pissed off because just about every time you walk outside, a car is when the average car is not supposed to be going that fast. Now, if that was your house, would you say that every now and again somebody's driving fast in front of your house? Or would you say, we need to put a stop sign right here because we got too many motherfuckers zooming past my damn house? and then the person that's zooming past the house, oh, you're projecting it onto the people who don't zoom in front. No, I'm just calling out the fact that there's a bunch of y'all that's out here zooming in front of my house, and I wanted to stop. The same way them 150 people with them cars in California got their cars impounded and crushed because they were doing donuts in a Walmart parking lot. Look, only so many times is the police going to tell you cut that out before they take your car. Because if tickets is a driving tax, and you're going to keep paying the tickets and you're going to keep doing the stuff, then, giving them a ticket ain't enough. If I take your $45,000 Hellcat with the Scat Pack package on it and total it out, you got to go buy, you got to finish paying for that car, and you got to go buy you another one. So if paying them $500 tickets ain't enough, paying 2 $500 a month car notes for 2 cars when you only own one, that ought to be enough. It'll make you stop. You ain't gonna do it a second time. You ain't gonna throw away and even if you did it a second time, you're not gonna be able to do it a third, because if they totaled out your $40,000 car the first time and you got to pay for the car, if you can afford to get you another one, they're not gonna get, your credit's gonna be bad because you owe for 2 cars. You're gonna stop paying on one, so you're gonna have a $40,000 repo where they can't recover the car because the police destroyed it. The dealership's not going to sell you a third car because you got to pay for the second car before you can get a third car. So if the police take the second car, you're going to be buying used cars from here on out, because you're not going to be able to deal with them totaling out Hellcats at $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a piece, sport package vehicles. You're not going to be able to do that. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys coming to This and That, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. Before I roll out, I just want to say, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to ask you every day to, ladies, make it make sense. So ladies, make it make sense. Woo! And Red, I really appreciate you showing us love. You're always here. You're always good to us. I got to keep giving you shout outs, and here. Got to drink some coffee on that. And I'm going to be here tomorrow. But like I said, as soon as I get that book in, I'm going to bring it that night. I should bring it to the show. I got to do a box opening earlier that day, because it should be coming in right before the show. And then after it comes that night, I'm going to do bring it on to the show if I can't do a whole show about the book, because I actually wanted to see if I could get the author on the show after I promo the book. I want to get the author on the show to talk about the book. So as I figure that stuff out, I got to build up the rest of the week with other content, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do next. So I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I got to make sure I got a topic up there for Wednesday. I think I do. But if I don't, I will have a topic scheduled up there on YouTube for Wednesday, because I have to pin down Wednesday of this week, Wednesday of next week, because Thursday through Sunday is set up until September 5th. And then I got to make an opening for the book. So I might have to push a show back a week just to make sure that I could throw the book in there. unless I'm going to just slide the book in as a guess what I got outside of whatever else we're talking about. But if I can throw it into an investment episode where we're talking about making money, make money for us, I can just throw the book into that topic. And that's kind of what I'm trying to roll into, so that I can just throw the book into that topic. So either way it goes, I'm going to see you tomorrow night. We're going to talk about making some money, because one of these days I'm supposed to be talking about some of the ways that we can make money from our house, which you can utilize some of this stuff, because there are some, and I didn't just find like hard stuff. I said, easy ways, low investment, where you should basically be using some of the stuff that you already got to make you some money, so that even if it ain't a lot of money, if you're doing a little bit of stuff here and there, it's a side hustle while you're working on your main job, as the money starts coming in, you'll make enough money to expand on that, so that this limited effort, reasonable return will offset your income, subsidize your income, until you get enough traction on it for it to take over your income. And any side hustle can become a full-time job. You just got to put enough effort into it, put enough time into it, and in some situations, put enough money into it. So as you scale up on your side hustle, where you're doing it a little bit at a time and you're getting a little pocket change here and there, you can just keep putting it in. But as the dividends, as the money and profits start building up, you want to be able to take that and start becoming a prime focus, especially when the money that you're making off of the side thing is equal to or greater than the money that you're making on your primary. Then you want to say, you know what, fuck this primary, because you're getting paid minimum wage or less than minimum wage on a primary job. If you start making double your income on a secondary job, you want to focus on a job that's making you the most money. So I'm never going to give anybody advice that says, sacrifice your standard of living, go in and invest all your effort and time and money into this thing, hope that you're successful. If you're not, you're going to lose it all. I'm never going to give that advice. That's horrible advice. I'm going to tell you, maintain a stable standard of living, invest time, effort, and money into growing a second income. And as that income surpasses this income that you have to kill yourself on to get very little returns, you start getting a lot of returns off of very little effort. You can redirect your efforts from massive effort, low returns, to low effort, massive returns, and then quit that job and focus on this one. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys to do. And in your 20s, it is better for you to start trying this stuff now. That way, by the time you're in your 40s, your 20-year plan is that in your 40s, that you will be side by side with me doing a podcast about how you made it, because I gave you the roadmap to make yourself successful. Because if somebody didn't tell you a lot of the information that you have, you wouldn't have had it, and then you wouldn't have known about it, and then you'd have been wondering, what do I do? How do I make ends meet? Side hustles help you take care of family. Side hustles help you if you're going to waste money on buying gifts for your girlfriend. You got extra money to buy gifts for your girlfriend, take her nice places. But side hustles help you get money on you, get yourself on your feet, get money to get extra wealth. And any side hustle that is generating more profit than expense, where you're not putting a lot of effort into that expense, is the type of side hustle that you can utilize to build you generational wealth. And every 20-year plan must be that you are making more money than you spend within the first 5 years. You are recouping all of your losses within the first 5 to 6 years, and or 2 years after you start making profit. And then after that, you are looking at your 10-year plan where you're expanding. You've reached a point where you're tired of expanding, and now you're just on a growth platform. When you're on a growth platform for the last 10 years, you're reaching a point at this area where you are now paying people to do the work for you, because you have more revenue than you need to compensate for what you want, and you have enough revenue to pay somebody else to replace you on the effort. When you start replacing yourself on the effort, you start building a self-sustainable business. When you're building a self-sustainable business that will make its own money, where it makes profit for the employees, it makes profit for the payroll company, it makes profit for the tax agents, it can bring in money, pay taxes on money, pay all of the workers. You don't have to lift a finger, and you're getting a kickback from it. That's where the trust comes in at. Instead of the business paying you. If the business is the grantor that pays into the trust, then the trust issues you a dividend. The beneficiary is not taxed. So instead, if you get taxes as an investor in the business, the trust gets money from the business, and then the beneficiary of the trust gets untaxable income. That's how, which is why I talked about the trust, because the last time I talked about the C corporation and why the C corporation was so important. And now I'm telling you how you can actually put a C corporation into a trust. You have business trust, land trust, there's all kinds of trusts, but you can put your business into a trust where the trust is owned by, or the business is owned by the trust. You can have more than one trust. So you can have a business in a trust. You can have your stock sponsored Bitcoin in a separate trust. You can have your land in a separate trust. Yeah, you got to pay for all these trusts to get set up. You got to pay for the people to manage these trusts. But if you've got 3 different trusts up there where your houses will not be impacted by your stocks will not be impacted by your land, your real estate business or whatever, and you're going to get dividends where this one can pay into this one can pay into that one, this one can pay you, and you legally don't own anything besides the car that you're driving, which if you buy one over 6,700 pounds, it considered a work vehicle. So the business pays for the vehicle, or you can switch it around, get you a business, get you a cash loan, buy the vehicle with the cash loan. It's a cash loan for the business. The vehicle's for the business. Doesn't have to be registered to the business. It's just for the business. Tax write-off. You put the title in your name. You're driving a car. Now you got a Lamborghini. That's how this shit works. But if we're not doing it right, if we're not paying attention to how to get things done right, we were throwing money away. I spent 45 minutes with an Uber driver giving them this type of knowledge, and he loved it. He's been in America for several years with his wife. I think it was over a decade. He's been in America from Thailand. He's been here for a very long time, and he did not know all of this knowledge, and they're just giving tax money to the government. And I'm like, as an American citizen, if you guys got citizenship, you can get all of this stuff, and you guys can set it up where your kids, by the time they're 18, because his oldest was 14, his youngest was in diapers, by the time his oldest is 18, you would have a self-sustainable business running that you could put into a trust that he can get dividends from, so that when he graduates from high school, he ain't got to work. He'll choose to work. You set him up something with a 10-year plan where by the time he gets out of college, he has 2 sources of income when he gets out of college. The one he decided to do for his degree, and the one that's been paying him since he was 18. You can set up the type of trust that starts a dividend distribution at the age of 18, where from the time the child is 14 to the time the child is 18, that is just building wealth. On the child's 18th birthday, it starts issuing money to the child. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. Oh, real quick, if you have children, you've got an LLC or a C corporation, you can pay your kids. Make your kids employees. You can have up to 5 employees on your business before you got to have workman's comp insurance. Work the kids, give them minimum wage. But if you got expectations for them to get stuff done, you're going to pay them whatever the minimum wage is, whatever the active minimum wage is in the state that you're living in. In some states, minimum wage is still $7, $8, $9, $10 an hour. In some areas, the minimum wage is going up to 15, where employers are paying people 20 to 25. But if you're living in a state where minimum wage is technically $8 an hour, and you're giving your kid $8 an hour to cook, clean, and mow the lawn, you calculate how many hours it should take for them to get that done based on how long it takes for you to do it. You might give them a little bit more because they're young and they're trying to learn, but you teach them how to take care of themselves, take care of their house, and then use the money that they work for to buy their own toys. So instead of them calling you and telling you, oh, I want a PS5 and I want the new GTA 6 and I want the PlayStation pass and the Game Boy pass and the Xbox this and the Fortnite membership subscription and all this. You get it with your own money. You do whatever you want to do with your own money, but you got to work for it. There's only so much stuff that needs to be done around the house, and I'm going to give you by the hour the amount of time it takes for you to do that particular job. And once you do that job, that's it. So however long it takes for you to earn enough money to buy whatever it is that you want to buy, that's what you got to do. And until you can afford it, you just can't get it. I'm not going to buy it for you. That's going to teach them responsibility, which is also going to make them value what you buy for them or what they buy for themselves because they had to work for that. As opposed to you buying them stuff and then they break it. If it took them 6 months to earn it, they're not going to want it to be broken inside of 6 days. But if they can get one, throw it on the ground, break it, and get another one, they'll throw it on the ground and break it because it didn't affect them the first time it broke it and it didn't affect them the second time it broke. So I know I carried it over a little extra, but I do it for you guys that are watching us on Twitch and Twitter and YouTube because you guys are my favorites. I'm just trying to incorporate TikTok into it, but TikTok is tough. So like I said before, I'm gonna phase in Twitter real soon. So you're gonna start seeing Twitter people in here alongside Twitch and YouTube, and I'll still be doing picture-in-picture with TikTok because I'm not too sure about TikTok. TikTok does get some views though, but I'm not too sure about TikTok. I'm getting the same quantity of traffic off of Pinterest. I'm not too sure about TikTok. I'm getting like 800, 900 views per video, 4 videos a day. You see that's 3,200 views, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm averaging over 2,000 views a day, which got me averaging over 60,000 views a month. You need 100,000 views plus 10,000 fans to get monetized, and I've got 60,000 views and 160. I'm gonna have to do some miraculous moves to get monetized. So I'm like, okay, they'll monetize me off 1,000, but I gotta dance to their tune for me to get that 1,000 and they monetize me, and I still have to have a certain quantity of views at the same time, average views per month. So I'm like, you know what, fuck it, I'll wait because I'm already getting. I've got 3 or 4 affiliate contracts already. So I got to do some dog treats. So you're going to see the dogs up on the show. I've got to do the card game that I was talking to you about, and then I got to do the real estate book. So I don't have to get paid by the ad. I get paid by the people who have products that they want me to show on my show as an ad. And I'm getting paid more per product than what I would have made off of AdSense from YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Twitch put together out of the last year. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm gonna keep enjoying, making sure that you guys can see what I got going on, and then give y'all some live behind the scenes information so that when y'all start coming to the membership and seeing the stuff as I put the stuff up there on the membership, because I have to start building up the community tab and making sure that there's so much extra content for the new people that join in, where you'll be able to see the stuff that I'm talking about with the real estate, the stuff that I'm talking about with the tax liens. So if anybody has ever heard me say something about something, you should see the PDF outline of all the stuff that I talked about on the show. You should see that in my community tab if I put it in there correctly, which means that you should be, if I don't have to screenshot it and put it up there, I got to figure it out. But you'll see everything I'm talking about in my community tab. And because you'll see that in my community tab for members only, if you join a membership, if you want to learn some stuff that I talked about on the show once before, you should be able to see it directly on the YouTube channel. So at $3 a month, it's pretty easy, because I think it's $2.99 for the membership. It's pretty easy to start getting some detailed information from the podcast, where $3.99 a month will give you all the information that you hear me tell you on a podcast, whereas a CPA will charge you $250 an hour, a tax agent will charge you $200 to $300 an hour, a health and fitness trainer will charge you $100 to $200 an hour. All of these things that cost so much money by the day and by the hour, and you're getting all that information from me for $3 a month. I mean, I don't even care. And then you can buy the shirts, you can buy the memorabilia that we have, and that stuff is pretty cheap. It's between $22 and $35 an item. I think the biggest one is the hoodies that are like $42 an item. But overall, the fact is that, you know, the pennies on a dollar that we get, it goes to a good cause. It helps us with the podcast. And, you know, once we start getting around, you're going to be wishing that you had sent to somebody sooner, because you're like, dang, he out here doing it like that. Because I'm not going to be the one that's going to be showing out. I'm going to be out there helping you guys invest. And then I'm going to be helping other people get on their feet with the ability to invest. So 2-step process. First, I got to make extra money so that I can use that extra money to invest in people so that those people can make more money for themselves. You give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man a fish, you feed him for life. But if you teach a man to fish and then you make a fishing school so that he can teach other people how to fish, you can get paid for the knowledge that man got. So you gave it to him for free, and then you and him go into business together where y'all are charging everybody else for the information. You don't got to do it no more. You just got to collect the money. That's capitalism. But the person that you help get started is going to be ever so grateful, because without you, they would have been forever begging for that first fish. Loyalty and dedication. You don't buy people. You don't buy people, because that doesn't give you loyalty, because people are greedy. They find somebody getting more than them, they're going to want you to give them more. But I mean, if you help somebody in a bad situation and make sacrifices for their success, their loyalty and admiration towards you is going to be unwavering. You don't have to manipulate people by fear. You don't have to manipulate people through threats and other such. You can literally just call it how it is, and then, you know, they will make it make sense for themselves, and then they'll make it work for you. And this is how you get good people on your team. So even when I have good friends that are not good business partners, those friends are still friends. I still make sure that I break them off when I get a little extra here and there, because I don't want them to ever feel like that I have forgotten them when they were valuable to me at one point in time. Even if you ain't valuable to me now, I make sure that if they were valuable to me at one point in time, that I show them that I still value them. But at the same time, I'm not going to make millions so that I can give you $500,000. I make millions, I might give you 10,000. Because I made them millions. We didn't make the millions. I made them millions. See what I'm saying? But I'll make sure that you ain't hurting on your own merit, because I looked out for you when I had it, the same way you looked out for me when you had it. And it doesn't have to be weighed equally. If you was giving me a few hundred at a time and I'm giving you a few thousand at a time, I had it to give when I was giving it to you a few thousand at a time. You had it to give when you was giving it to me a few hundred at the time. That's all that matters. I had what I needed when I needed it. You have what you need when you need it. If intersex relationships were the same way, we would not have a catastrophe with the soft guy era 2024 drizzle. But because we have that catastrophe, it is what it is. Either way, I appreciate you hanging out a little extra. We actually crossed 2.5 hours. I know you're loving these like damn near 3-hour podcasts now. We used to run it for an hour and be done. You're like, yeah, caught the ass end of it. Now you're like, woo, I'm here for a whole hour, 30 minutes. I know you're loving it. And I'm going to try my best to keep doing it as often as possible. But I definitely got to do some behind the scenes stuff. So let me go ahead and get that new intro set up, so that I'm going to try to do an intro that I can use for an intro and an outro. But let me get that set up so that we can find another way to put the show together, so that everybody's like, oh shit, they're doing it big. And then, you know, we'll see where it goes. Again, thank you for hanging out for this and that, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And you guys have a good night. And here comes the outro.